From translation, RSV Revised Standard Version. This 13th day of the year. Today we are reading passages Genesis 38 to 40. Genesis chapter 38, verses 1 to 30. It happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers, and turned aside to a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hurrah. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. He took her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. Yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Shelah, and he was at Shaib when she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, Go into your brother's wife, and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So when he went into his brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground, lest he should give offspring to his brother. And what he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Then Judah said to Tamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow in your father's house, till Shelah my son grows up, for he feared that he would die, like his brothers. So Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. In course of time the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died, and Judah after his mourning went up to Timnah to his sheep-shearers, he and his friend Hurrah the Adullamite. And when Tamar was told, Your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep, she took off her widow's garments, and put on a veil, wrapped herself up, and sat down at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she was not given to him as wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot, for she had covered her face. He turned to her by the road and said, Come, let me come into you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, What will you give me that you may come into me? He answered, I will send you a kid from the flock. And she said, Will you give me a pledge till you send it? He said, What pledge shall I give you? She replied, Your signet and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and went away, and taking off her veil she put on her widow's garments. Judah sent the kid by his friend the Adullamite, to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. He asked the men of the place, Where is the cult prostitute, the one at Enaim by the road? But they said, There has been no cult prostitute here. So he returned to Judah and said, I have not found her. Also the men of the place said, There has been no cult prostitute here. Judah said, Let her keep it, lest we be put to shame. Behold, I sent this kid, and you could not find her. About 3 months later Judah was told, Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot. Moreover she is pregnant by harlotry. And Judah said, Bring her out and let her be burnt. As she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, By the man to whom these belong I am with child. And she said, Please, whose are these, the signet and the cord and the staff? Then Judah acknowledged them and said, She is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah. And he knew her again no more. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and bound on his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This one came out first. But as he drew back his hand, behold, his brother came out. And she said, What a breach you have made for yourself. Therefore his name was called Perez. Afterward his brother came out with the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Afterward his brother came out with the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Genesis chapter 39, verses 1 to 23. Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that whatever he did the Lord made prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight, and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house, and put all that he had in his charge. From the time that he made him overseer in his house, and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had, in house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and with him there he had no concern for anything but the food he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. And after a time his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and said, Lie with me. But he refused, and said to his master's wife, Behold, with me here, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put that which he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And as she spoke to Joseph day by day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her or to be with her. But one day when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand, and fled and got out of the house. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to mock us. He came into me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud noise. And when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me and fled and got out." Then she laid up his garment by her until her master came home, and she told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought to us came into me to mock me. But as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me and fled out." When his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, "This is the way your servant treated me," his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him steadfast love, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's care all the prisoners who were in the prison, and whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no heed to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made prosper. Genesis chapter 40, verses 1 to 23. After these things, the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he attended them, and they continued for some time in custody. And they both dreamed on the same night, each his own dream, and each dream with its own meaning. And in the morning Joseph came to them, and saw that they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in his master's house, "Why are your faces downcast today?" They said to him, "We have dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret it." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell me them." So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, "In my dream there was a vine before me, and on the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms shot forth, and its clusters brought forth ripe grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Then Joseph said to him, "This is its meaning. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office, and you shall place Pharaoh's cup in his hand, as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But remember me when it is well with you, and do me the kindness, I pray you, and make mention of me to Pharaoh, and so get me out of this house. For truly I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews. And here also I have done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I also had a dream. There were 3 cake baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there were all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating it out of the basket on my head." And Joseph answered and said, "This is its meaning. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat the flesh from you." On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants, and lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his cupbearership, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand, but he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. And the chief baker died, and all of Pharaoh's household were sorry for him, but the chief cupbearer was not sorry for Joseph. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. And the chief baker died, and all of Pharaoh's household were sorry for him, but the chief cupbearer was not sorry for Joseph.